Welcome to the Convergence podcast. I'm your host, Ashok Shivanan.
You look around at everybody, every role on your team, and you need to ask yourself, what am I saying that connects purpose for this person every day? And that's ultimately what you want in order to win in the marketplace.
On this show, we'll deconstruct the best practices, principles, and the underlying philosophies behind the most engaged product teams who ship the most successful products. This is what teams are made of. Hey folks, welcome back. Today I am joined once again by Bailey O'Shea, the head of product at Integral. Bailey and I get to work together at Integral and help our clients with building some amazing products, as well as enabling really strong and engaged product teams. Before Integral, Bailey worked in the go-to-market side of the auto industry, as well as at an innovation lab at General Motors, where she conducted experiments and other research alongside the likes of IDEO to carve the path for the future of automotive retail there. Bailey's team now helps our clients with product strategy, product road mapping, and integrating with a product team to deliver lean and agile roadmaps and products that really delight customers. A couple of weeks ago, Bailey and I did an episode on the 9 conversations you might be forgetting to have with your product team. The feedback was amazing, and y'all have asked for more tips and tricks in the how of these conversations. So we've decided to do a little bit of a deep dive on each of these conversations. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and follow buttons depending on where you're catching this, so you are kept up to speed on all 9 of these series. And if you've forgotten or haven't gotten a chance to listen to that first episode on the 9 crucial conversations, make sure to check those out. Today's episode is going to be about the why, the business strategy, the business goals, and how this product is going to move the needle for your business, and how this conversation is really important to align your team, and some facilitation techniques and other things that we've learned along the way. Hope you enjoy it. Subscribe to the podcast to get future episodes as soon as they're published. If you find this helpful, give the podcast a 5-star rating on your podcast app or hit that like button on YouTube.
What's up, Ashok?
What's up, Bailey? Welcome back.
Thanks. Good to be back.
So we're talking today about the conversations that product teams forget to have and some of the things we learned from having to retrofit them. And the first conversation there is around the why, or maybe the business goals or the strategy around the product. And this is a conversation that I think certainly does happen in some rooms, but not in the room, i.e. the room with the product team, where you're bringing in all of the folks that are contributing towards this product and making sure to share with them that why, or the business goals, and how you're going to win, what you're going to solve for your customer, how this fits into your strategy. So take us away, Bailey. What are some aspects of why you think we should really have this conversation about why?
Yeah, so when we get started with clients, often it is the first time that a group of people are in the room, engineers included, stakeholders included, and they're all talking about why are we building this product together. We think it's important to have everybody in the room because everybody plays a different role in that why, and how they end up collaborating with each other will be determined by everybody's mutual understanding and making the same assumptions behind the why. So why I love to talk about why we're doing this is because, and Marty Kagan said it well, half of the ideas that you come up with likely aren't going to work. Meaning, if everybody's tied to a specific feature or a release and thinks it's a silver bullet to success, we need to work a level above that so that teams can experiment a little bit, make a couple mistakes, learn along the way, and give themselves time to learn along the way.
Yeah, I think we oftentimes will clarify how we're going to get there, maybe not as much where we're going to go. So if you hit a fork in the road, or if you hit a boulder in the road, it's that how needs to get thrown away, but the destination continues.
Yeah.
And it really empowers the team to figure out new ways to get around that boulder or whatever it is. What are some things that you've seen happen when folks have forgotten to have the conversation?
Yeah, so when people don't have the conversation, people make assumptions about the why. So an engineer's why around what scale that the company is looking for or anticipating, or what impact in the marketplace might determine some of their technology decisions in terms of architecture. The designers, or who they decide to focus on in terms of core customer, that might vary based on their understanding of the why, in terms of problem that it's solving, or again, impact that it's having on people using it. So it's really important to have everybody stating those assumptions out loud. And there are a couple of exercises that we can do to facilitate that.
Yeah, let's transition to that. So now that we know why it's important to have this conversation, talk a little bit more about how you facilitate them.
Yeah, so one exercise that I really love is the press release exercise. It can be done in 30 to 45 minutes. Pretty straightforward if you think about any newspaper that you pick up or article that you see on your phone. You need to write a headline. You need to explain kind of what are the most important details within that paragraph, short paragraph. And you want to think about those details as being both customer facing, obstacles that the company has overcome along the way, or the product has overcome, and how it sits in the marketplace today. And you want to talk about it as if you're at Thanksgiving dinner and you're talking to your aunt. Because ultimately, it needs to be removed of any jargon so that the average person can understand the why. What I also love is getting a quote from the user of the product. So that could be in an internal product, that could be the, developer or specialist using it, or external product to be the customer themselves, the paying customer. And then a quote from the company spokesperson. That can be somebody as large as the CEO or as small as somebody on the dev team or the product team that has something amazing to say about what they're doing. And then how to learn more. So where does the person go to learn more about the product that you're building?
So you get everyone in a room together, and I think you set is it a 10-minute timer or something?
Yep. Allow people to kind of sit in their thoughts, write all of this out. And then ultimately you go around the room and everybody shares with each other.
It's a very fun environment. It reminds me of sort of classroom time where we're all sitting down and putting our heads down and being creative. And the room is kind of really quiet for a while, but the energy is really buzzing despite the silence. And then it's really fun to hear people share out. I think the team gets to know each other a little bit more on top of understanding what's in it for each of the folks as to what they're excited about. And I think as a product leader, a product team leader, that gives you some insights into things that can help. Eventually there's going to be some friction points where we have to solve some hard problems, or we're a little tired and we need to dig a little deeper. And knowing everyone's why behind that specific product gives the leader just a little bit more of how to cater the conversations to motivate and inspire the team too, which I think these are some nuggets that show up as a result of doing this, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. And in terms of the scope of the vision or the press release, if you're a startup or a scale up and you have one product, that product is your vision. That is your purpose and why you're there every day. For larger enterprises, you might be working on one product, in kind of in an organization of many. And so you'll want to cater that headline to how that impacts the company goal, but also might impact other products along the way.
It's also quite interesting, I think, that on the one hand, having metrics in there is always great, because especially from a business standpoint, what are some of the targets that the company is looking for, the business is looking for in terms of ROI that led to the funding or the budget allocation for this investment in the first place? And getting clarity on that and what it means for where you work is really important. Fostering an engaged product organization and aligning them with the principles around lean, human-centered design, and agile will more than likely lead to successful business outcomes for your organization. But getting started or getting unblocked can be hard. This podcast is brought to you by the player coaches over at Integral. They help ambitious companies like you build amazing product teams and ship products in artificial intelligence, cloud, web, and mobile. Listeners to the podcast can head on over to integral.io/convergence and get a free product success lab. During this session, the Integral team will facilitate a problem-solving exercise that gives you clarity and confidence to solve a product design or engineering problem. That's integral.io/convergence. Now, back to the show. I think what has been maybe surprising but awesome to see time and time again is how there's also inward-looking measures or stories that people put in the press release, right? About how the team worked. And so what comes to mind for you there?
Yeah, so I can think of a time we were kicking off a new engagement with a client, and the client's goals were around they were rapidly scaling, a startup rapidly scaling. They wanted to transition to more of a technology-enabled startup, and they wanted to build out their technology team and their capability internally. So they talked a lot about that, but not as it related to kind of the product vision specifically. So as we were going around the room, somebody said within the press release, this company is named as Forbes top 100 places to work. And the CEO and everybody really responded to that. And then we had a conversation around, what is the developer experience? What is the product experience that they need to have in order to hire the right talent where this is true in the future? So we were not only talking about what we were building, but how we were building it, and the principles and the methods and the norms that needed to be in place to scale it accordingly.
Yeah, I love it. And I think especially for teams where you're not used to hiring product team members and you're transitioning toward being a technology company, that insight is really helpful to get all the way up to the C-suite so that you're not making decisions like you are hiring for a manufacturing company or a finance company, and you're thinking about what tech hiring is. And it is certainly nuanced. So it's a good opportunity to get that conversation also planted as seeds across the team. I think another great element over here is also it can lead to, it's an opportunity, not necessarily the press release, but this conversation more broadly. It's an opportunity to share what difference we're making for the customer. And I think regardless of what role that you play, whether you're on the technical side, the customer side, the business side, you can resonate with things if it is stated in a more relatable way. Like I remember that one room we were both in, the founder of auto refinance company talked about how they showed an example, and I still don't know whether he did this intentionally or it was one of when he did a demo of the existing product that we were refactoring, he showed us a case of a veteran that they reduced a car loan from a 25% interest rate down to 6% or 5%. Yeah. And I could see in the room, everyone, regardless of what role they were playing, were really jazzed about going out and building things that can help have more of those stories and improve the lives of that many more people. Another one I remember was when we worked on a ride-hailing application for medical transit. And the product lead or the business owner came in and she talked about how this is a problem that impacts around 3 million Americans who don't have access to healthcare because they can't get there. And very quickly, you could see people in the room starting to think about someone in their family, someone in their community, someone in their neighborhood that relies on a friend or family or someone else to get to their dialysis or chemotherapy or whatever else, and how much harder their life is than what we assume. And it gets the team really inspired about, in that case, driving accessibility to mobility. And you bring in extra ounces of energy for sure when you can really relate to the problem and you feel like you're making a difference in the world. And I think there's another, I'm going to leave you with one third story here and really drive home the point that I think the business person in the room, the person who is familiar with why this is being done, it maybe takes another 10 minutes of prep to really share some of these stats or stories, frankly, that can get the team energized. There was another company in that lending space that we worked with, where we automated the financing and leasing for an online car purchase. And I remember the product team wasn't necessarily very jazzed until we realized these are folks that haven't sat in that room, in the F&I room at a dealership for 3 hours waiting for that one person while their kids are running around, just driving everyone insane in the dealership. And how we were able to then share, like, hey, this is this many hours on average multiplied by this many people who are buying a car every day, that now they're able to do this with a few clicks online, spend more time with their family or whatever they're passionate about. I don't know too many people who are passionate about spending time in the F&I office. No offense to anyone there. And all of a sudden you could see that transition from saying, hey, we're building an online leasing and financing application to, hey, we are bringing a lot of delight to a number of Americans and reducing the friction or the frustration that comes from sitting and waiting and drinking the mediocre coffee in this office. And then all of a sudden the team's a lot more energized. You find that people show up with ideas the next morning, right? Trying to find new ways to solve the problem. And for me, I'd rather have more ideas, even if I have to sift through a few more, because it tells me that the team is on board with solving this problem. There's a high level of engagement there. Yeah,
I love that. Those are great examples. And I think the big underlying thing or the word to use there is purpose. And you look around at everybody, every role on your team, and you need to ask yourself, like, what am I saying that connects purpose for this person every day? This engineer that might learn about features way too late and they're just getting a go do, that's not going to ignite their purpose and their creativity. And that's ultimately what you want in order to win in the marketplace.
And there's, in terms of using product management cliches, there's fall in love with the problem, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And in order to fall in love with the problem, we need to get to know the problem. And stating that problem is a really key part. Just to drive home one more principle that this lines home with, where, every hero's journey has some kind of villain. The villain could be that person spending time in the dealership, or that high interest rate that veteran's paying. Or in some cases, that's more of a customer-centric approach to finding that. In other cases, I think it could also be a competitor, where if you have a highly aligned team who's very bought into the company, then your competitors can be the villain. That might be the more obvious one that folks always that I've heard multiple times, of how people are talking about these people are taking this market share and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I think my advice is to layer on top of that with the customer problems you're solving and make it a little bit more relatable to the humans that are on your team. And then that'll layer back up into helping you solve that same business problem and out-competing anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have to be able to say it in a sentence or two and say it to your aunt at the dinner table. And if they get that competitive kind of ignition of energy, or they're like, oh, I know somebody with that problem, or that sounds amazing, that's really affirming.
I think the one thing that we may have forgotten to cover that comes to mind for me is don't forget to document these things. Put them in a place that, imagine a new product team member joining and you need to onboard them. Don't send them a Miro board or photographs of a whiteboard that they need to go synthesize and make assumptions. Take a little bit of time and write something out for that person. This is going to be, a document you iterate on for sure as you change your strategy. But know that that product team is going to change over time. People win lotteries and take new jobs and move on with stuff, and new team members come in, and you want those new team members just as engaged, and you don't want to leave it up to chance that the other team members are going to get them jazzed up. So writing it down and having like one slide on this or two slides to walk them through on their first day is something that you can do your future self a favor on if you take a little bit of extra time to put down what those key points are.
Yeah, I love that. And I love putting it on like at the top of the roadmaps as well. So that even when you're looking ahead and then you're kind of maybe seeing that vision just everywhere all the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you joining me again. And I look forward to talking about the other 8 conversations that people often forget to have on their product teams.
Yeah, let's rock and roll.